Los Angeles. The name itself conjures images of starlight and sun-drenched boulevards. It's the factory where aspirations are forged, and all too often where they silently dissolve. Beneath the shimmering veneer of Hollywood glamour and endless California sunshine, there exists a profound and unsettling truth, a reality many choose to overlook. Every single night, as the city's lights blaze, tens of thousands of souls seek refuge in its forgotten corners. You'll find them on the cold concrete of sidewalks, tucked away beneath the thunder of freeway overpasses, or folded into the worn seats of cars that have long since finished their journey. These are not mere phantoms in your peripheral vision. They are human beings, with names, with histories. Among them are individuals who once commanded classrooms, who once wore a soldier's uniform with pride. Many grew up on these very streets, only to find themselves systematically edged out, pushed from their jobs, their homes, and the lives they once recognized as their own. For some, finding themselves without a home is the final, desperate stop on a long road of misfortune. For countless others, it was never a choice to begin with. They've been cast into a societal chasm, with no lifeline thrown to aid their return. This isn't merely a narrative of poverty. It's a chronicle of the immense gulf between promise and existence, between the sheltered and the exposed, between the iconic American dream and the raw, unfiltered truth of what it has become. This is the Los Angeles story that doesn't make the postcards. These are the voices that have been silenced. And tonight, we're here to amplify them. The anatomy of a crisis. Greater Los Angeles is home to over 10 million people. Yet for an estimated 70,000, the city is no longer a home. They exist without the basic security of a roof or the simple assurance of tomorrow. This crisis isn't new, but over the last 2 decades, it has metastasized into a shadow that is now impossible to ignore. Year after year, the tide of homelessness rises. How can this be happening in one of the most affluent cities on the planet? The answer is a complex, tangled knot. A primary driver is the crushing cost of living. Rental prices have climbed to astronomical heights, far beyond wage growth, becoming an insurmountable wall for countless working families. When an unexpected crisis hits, a job loss, a medical emergency, they are tipped over the precipice. Compounding this is a critical shortage of affordable housing. New construction overwhelmingly caters to the wealthy, leaving those with low incomes with vanishingly few options and multi-year waiting lists for any kind of aid. Gentrification acts as an accelerant, as long-term residents are systematically priced out of their own communities, erased from the city's map. And then there's the quieter, but no less devastating storm within, the dual crisis of mental health and addiction. A significant portion of the unhoused population grapples with trauma, depression, or substance dependency, but the systems designed to help are fractured, bewildering, and often arrive too late. We cannot forget the bedrock of history. Decades of discriminatory policies and the dismantling of social safety nets have carved deep scars of inequity, and today, we are witnessing the consequences. The people experiencing homelessness are not the lazy or the weak. They are the casualties of a system that has failed to protect its own. They are not the problem. They are the symptom. And as their numbers swell, we must ask a sobering question. Are we genuinely building cities for all, or only for the few who can afford the price of admission? Ground Zero. A walk through Skid Row. In the heart of downtown Los Angeles, mere footsteps from gleaming corporate towers, exists a parallel reality many pretend isn't there. Its name is Skid Row. Stretching across 50 city blocks, it is the survival ground for thousands, and the unfiltered, uncensored face of the homeless crisis. Skid Row is more than an encampment of tents. It is a shattered reflection of our societal contract, where every corner cradles an unheard story of loss and struggle. The day here is jolted into motion by the roar of traffic and the fragile prayer that today will be kinder than the last. For many, Skid Row is the final destination after every other door has slammed shut, for those turned away from shelters for untreated mental illness or denied housing for an addiction they can't break alone. Life on these streets is a masterclass in survival. It's a constant battle against the threats of violence, theft, and harassment, even from authorities who sometimes arrive not to protect, but to clean up, treating human beings like urban debris. Yet, in this chaos, an astonishing solidarity thrives. Tents are clustered together in fragile fortresses. There is an unspoken code, a sense of vigilance, because a moment of deep sleep could cost you everything. But you will also see people watching over their neighbors, splitting their last piece of food, and helping one another back to their feet. They have forged a resilient community out of shared abandonment. Because when the world turns its back, all they have is each other. And that is the most profound irony. Skid Row is not an indictment of the people who live there. It is the living, breathing evidence of a system with no room for its most vulnerable. It is the collective voice of a population that has been ignored for too long. And perhaps it's our turn to finally listen. The faces behind the statistics. We often make the mistake of seeing the unhoused as a single entity, as if they all spring from the same misstep. The truth is, they are fractured pieces of our own world, adrift, but undeniably human. Meet Raymond. He's 54. For years, he was a line worker at a printing plant with a modest home and 2 kids. But a decade ago, the plant shut down, and his life unraveled. He lost his job, then his marriage, then his mental health, and finally, his home. For months, his car was his sanctuary as he clung to the hope of finding work. But when the money ran out, the car was towed, and his world shrank to the unforgiving dimensions of a concrete sidewalk. "I'm not lazy," he told us, his voice raspy with exhaustion. "I just ran out of options." You don't realize how one bad turn can unravel your entire life. Every day, Raymond searches for an opportunity. But without an address or a phone, the doors remain firmly shut. And then there's Lisa, only 28. She came to Los Angeles to become a nurse, but the city's staggering cost of living extinguished her dream. That was the first blow. The second was escaping a violent partner. She fled, lost her footing, and eventually found a fragile sense of safety sleeping in a metro station. "People look at me and they see a stereotype," she says, her words a quiet defiance. "But I'm just a woman who is tired." In the worn-out backpack that never leaves her side, Lisa still carries her nursing textbooks. They are, she explains, a tangible reminder that she once had a future, and that, maybe, she still does. The stories of Raymond and Lisa are not what we expect. They unsettle us because they prove this can happen to anyone. They show us the distance between our world and theirs is dangerously thin. They are not the problem. They are a warning, a testament to a system that allows its people to fall without a net. And as long as we choose to avert our gaze, we are complicit in allowing this tragedy to persist. The maze of policy and a mountain of money. Los Angeles' homelessness crisis is the direct consequence of decades of public policy. Each year, billions of dollars are channeled into addressing the issue through housing initiatives, subsidies, and outreach. So why does the number of unhoused people continue to climb? One of the greatest obstacles is a suffocating bureaucracy. The web of assistance is a labyrinth of complex applications and administrative hurdles. How can a person be expected to fill out a 20-page online form when they lack a safe place to sit, let alone a computer or a state-issued ID? Meanwhile, the development of affordable housing moves at a glacial pace, often torpedoed by political infighting and fierce community opposition, a phenomenon known as NIMBY, not in my backyard. Too many residents agree the homeless need help, just as long as it's not located anywhere near them. At the same time, law enforcement strategies often make things worse. Sweeps of encampments don't solve homelessness. they merely shuffle it around. A tent dismantled on one corner today reappears on another tomorrow. It's a cruel, expensive, and ineffective cycle. As the city's budget swells into the billions, a frustrated public is rightfully asking, where is all this money actually going? The answers are lost across a disjointed array of agencies and disconnected policies. There is no single, coherent strategy. And as long as our response remains a patchwork of disconnected efforts, the crisis will deepen. Real, lasting change requires more than money. It demands a unified vision and the courage to build systems that are fundamentally humane. The seeds of hope, solutions from the ground up. In the shadow of a monumental crisis, it's easy to feel powerless. But meaningful change doesn't only flow from the top down. It sprouts from the ground up, nurtured by ordinary people who refuse to accept despair as the final word, and who believe every human being is worthy of dignity. Across Los Angeles, grassroots movements are pushing back against inertia, meeting people on the streets with food, blankets, and most importantly, respect. Consider the Midnight Mission, an institution since 1914 that offers a complete pathway back, from hot meals to shelter, recovery programs, and job training. Then there is LA CAN, a powerful organization led by people who have experienced homelessness themselves. They understand the terrain intimately, championing the civil rights of the unhoused and fighting unjust evictions. Beyond these pillars, new solutions are taking root. One of the most promising is the Tiny Home Villages project. These are not just shelters. They are individual, private spaces offering security, stability, and a sense of self-worth. In other corners, technology offers a digital lifeline, connecting people with available beds and food banks, while local businesses step up with practical job opportunities, knowing that a steady paycheck can be the first step on the long road home. But perhaps the most powerful solution is the simplest: human connection. The moment a person is seen not as a problem, but as an individual. These initiatives alone may not solve the crisis, but they illuminate the path forward. They prove that with empathy and collaboration, we can build a bridge from the pavement to a home. Because monumental change is always built on a foundation of small, determined steps, most often taken by those who truly care. The ripple effect: why this matters to everyone. When we discuss homelessness, we tend to frame it as an isolated problem. But this crisis is an open wound on the entire body of the city. We have permitted a social chasm to form between the haves and the have-nots, creating two separate worlds on the very same streets where suspicion festers and our collective empathy erodes. The strain is felt everywhere. Thousands of children are trapped in an educational limbo, unable to learn without a stable home. Our hospitals bear the burden as emergency rooms become de facto shelters, straining public health infrastructure to its breaking point. The economic price of our inaction is staggering. The endless cycle of emergency calls, hospital stays, and police sweeps costs taxpayers hundreds of millions annually. Yet, study after study confirms a simple truth. Providing permanent housing is not only more humane, it is significantly less expensive. When people are locked in a cycle of survival, they cannot work or contribute. That lost human potential is the invisible deficit on our city's balance sheet. This strain frays the entire social fabric as small businesses lose customers and public faith in our institutions continues to crumble. Ultimately, homelessness is not about them. It is about all of us. It is a reflection of the kind of city we are choosing to be, and a stark calculation of the price we all pay when we choose to look away. The reflection in the pavement. Behind every makeshift shelter is a person who once held a dream. Beneath every threadbare blanket on a cold patch of sidewalk lies a universe of stories, aspirations, and heartaches, all invisible to the passing glance. We inhabit a world in perpetual motion, a world consumed by deadlines, by quarterly reports, by the pursuit of personal comfort. But what does it say about our society? when we allow tens of thousands of our neighbors to sleep under an open sky, night after night, in a city that proclaims itself the land of opportunity? Homelessness is not a foregone conclusion. It is not just another number on a chart. It is a mirror, and the reflection it shows us is a portrait of who we have become. We can stand by and wait for change to be handed down from on high. But history teaches us that real transformation ignites only when individual hearts are moved to care, and when individual hands are moved to act. None of us can single-handedly end this crisis, but every one of us can choose to break the silence. We can choose to see what is uncomfortable, to listen to the stories that are hard to hear, and to act in whatever way we can. Whether it's through a donation to a frontline organization, volunteering your time, sharing this story to raise awareness, or simply offering a word of kindness to someone who has been rendered invisible by the system. Every single act matters. Because in the final analysis, the greatness of a city is not measured by the height of its skyscrapers or the brilliance of its skyline. It is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable, by how it cares for those who have nowhere left to turn. We may not be able to rescue everyone, but if our collective effort can change the course of one life, if we can restore one person's hope in tomorrow, isn't that a profound and worthy start? Los Angeles must belong to everyone, and that includes those who, for now, have no place to call home.